What is going on, everybody? This is the debut episode of the Gangrene Chronicles pod. I'm Luca Gajovich-Protich, Crons on X, as well as my co-host, Vinny Masacol, co-founder of the Gangrene Chronicles podcast. Now, a little bit real quick. This has been in talks for a couple of weeks, but a little bit before the draft, a little bit after free agency, this episode will be covering the Jets free agency period, whether they went smart or they went to the bargain bin. We'll talk all about it. But before I introduce myself a little bit as a Jet fan, I want to turn the attention over to Vinny.
Hey, everybody. And thank you, Luca. This has definitely me and you have been talking about this for a while now. And, um, I've been a Jet fan since the Coslet era. So I know a lot about this team. I know, I go back to the days when ownership was, Mr. Hess owned the company or owned the team. I've been through the Coslet and the Kotite era, and things like that. And when this team was bad, and when it was good, what it looks like. And I've seen good football and I've seen bad football. I spent 20 years in Seattle, and I saw what bad football was when they started and how they turned that team around to a great team. And now, of course, they're, I think they're middling in the middle now. But as far as that goes, and I also have, I recently got my degree in journalism, so I'm studying that. I've also, I also have another podcast with Sean, who we know very well, the Pile Drivers and Pinstripes podcast. But yeah, so when we had talked about this, I was all for it. I really love the Jets. It's my passion, but it's been more disappointment than success, unfortunately.
Yeah, we have some big things big things planned and hoped for with this podcast. Vinny, as he said, you don't have to just find him here with Gangrene Chronicles. You can also find him with Pinstripes and Pile Drivers, a Yankees and WWE podcast with my best friend Sean Cucaro. Please check him out over there. I'm going to have the link in the description when I get to it. But me as a Jet fan, I'm 21 years old, going to be 22 this year, and the last time they made the playoffs, I was 7 years old. This was 2011. Obviously, before my birthday, I was born on August 19th of 03. But I feel as though Vinny, and this is not like the negative segment, I should say negative sentiment. This is more so going into, my life as a Jet fan. And it seems like every year it gets more exhausting to watch this team. And we hope it obviously can change. Just look at the last 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, acquiring Aaron Rodgers, waiting for him, trading all the assets. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in his first season. We have Zach Wilson again, that whole bordello. Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas. The second year, Robert Saleh gets fired in the middle of the season. So does Joe Douglas. Aaron Rodgers is nowhere near what we thought we were. And we're just looking for a fresh start. And you could say, and we'll get into this as well, just to open a little bit. The last 14 years have been hell for the fan base, whether you're an old fan or a young fan. And I always debate this question whether the old fans or the young fans have it better. Because for a young fan like me, I've seen some good football with the Jets. 2015 with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, those guys. But that was short-lived. You had 2009, 2010 with Rex Ryan. That was short-lived. So there's been no sustainable success. But obviously, Vinny was able to see as a fan arguably the best season without a championship in Jets history, the 98 team. So at least you have that. You had some of the Coslet years, as you saw, but you also saw the Rich Kotite years, which were arguably the worst in Jets history, aside from the Adam Gase years, which was horrible. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I call myself a little bit, and this is like how the organization has turned me. I'm more of a pessimistic, I would say, I had a specific term for this. I'm trying to think pessimistic realism or something. Pessimistic objectivity, something like that. Objectively, there we go. Objectively pessimistic. That's what I am on this team, because this team hasn't done anything right for the past 14 years. They go through the same processes and do all these different things. You have the owner who will bring up in like just a short second, babbling at the mouth, but nothing has changed. And every consistent change through different regimes and all, we're trying to find the solution. We're trying to hope that Aaron Glenn and Darren Mucci are the right guys. Chris Spielman as well, obviously being the front office advisor. But let's get into our owner, Woody Johnson. And not that this was like a major topic covered by some people, but it gives the pessimistic fans and the negative fans a lot of rope because Woody Johnson, if you guys didn't see, it was earlier this year where obviously every year the ownership of each team across the NFL, whether successful or not, is given a grade. Things like food, family services, like how good are they to the families, how good are they to the players, locker room culture, all these different things. They just got an F grade. And it's quite obvious with the turmoil that happened middle of the season. You fire Robert Saleh, you fire Joe Douglas. So Woody Johnson was properly asked about these reports. His response, I think those reports are bogus. Vinny, I'll let you comment first.
I'll tell you, I I can't believe he actually came out. Although, I'm not going to say I can't believe he said that. I was going to, but then it's kind of, our friend at Let's Talk Jets Radio, Kevin, said it best. He's tired of the owner not taking responsibility.
100%.
And he said a lot more than that. If you hadn't had a chance now don't watch it now. Wait till this is over and then go ahead and watch Let's Talk Jets Radio. Watch Kevin's response. He was angry. And not only was he angry he was angry for what Woody said. Because it's a constant every single time, every word out of his mouth is always denial. And it's that path of denial that has gotten us into this situation. Whether it wasn't his fault, Chris was in charge of the team. Well, come on, man. It's so hard to be positive. And Kevin has tried to be positive. Mm-hmm. And I understand, I understand a lot of the fans giving him grief for not being positive, but it's so hard. You have to really understand, like, guys that, like, he had season tickets. It's hard to pay for season tickets when your owner doesn't care, really. He doesn't care about what it's like when a boss gives you a job performance and you say, "Oh, that's not true." Really? I mean, the player, the players aren't his boss, but I mean, come on, man. It's like not taking a survey from a customer seriously.
Exactly.
And I've been in customer service before. I've been in retail. If you don't take a customer's word seriously, you're not going to survive a lot. And no. I think, and it's hard because we can't fire the owner.
Yeah.
And we went through this with the Knicks with Dolan, and at least now we know, Dolan's kind of backed off. At least we know of. I thought, and Kevin was right about this too. I thought he was gonna take a step back,
mm-hmm.
and they fired 140 people from the staff because there were leaks.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about leaks. If your organization is dysfunctional, you're still going to have leaks no matter who you bring in.
Of course,
it's not going to matter. Okay, so. Don't give me this. Oh, we fired 140 people. We're not gonna. Come on, man. It's a crock. It's just. I don't even know, man. I'm as frustrated as Kevin is, and it's very hard. And I'm normally a very positive guy. It's hard to be positive about a team when the owner doesn't take responsibility. That's all.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And it's when you're a young Jet fan like myself, being 22 years old, it almost feels like with the bad football, you just age an amount of years. No offense to you, Vinny, but I'm just saying, like, you brought up great points with Woody Johnson. And the biggest problem with Woody is he's tone deaf, he's cheap, and he's raising ticket prices on the fans consistently. I think it was the first year that he started with these ticket prices with the raising was like 21-22 when the Jets won 4 games. The next season, he had the gall to raise ticket prices when the Jets were 7-4 in the middle of a playoff race. Right. What do you know, Vinny? They lose the next 6 games and are eliminated from playoff contention. One of the worst collapses you'll ever see. Next year, He's raising ticket prices. He's telling people to pay early in November. And and then this year, I think he raised ticket prices once again. And I'm obviously not going to be this person to say, like, oh, well, if you go to games, you're a part of the problem. You spend money how you want, obviously.
Right.
But Woody Johnson, he is the constant in all this. Regimes have gone in and out. Adam Gase, Robert Saleh, Todd Bowles, Rex Ryan, all these different cats. You got Joe Douglas, John Idzik, all these guys. And here's another problem that, Vinny, that you might have not covered. He has non-football people making football decisions.
Exactly.
Look at all the stuff that was written in The Athletic.
Right.
And I'm not saying Diana Rossini's thing was gospel.
Not very high on her. She's she's hit or miss. But yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, I got to meet her at the Senior Bowl. Very nice. But regardless, to the point, reading, you don't have to believe everything she wrote, but it's obvious that somebody's talking.
Exactly.
And whether it could be Rex Hogan or whoever was the running back coach that got fired, like the article leak started coming about in February of 2024. There was a giant article released about how bad the Jets were, especially with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and all these different things. There was leaks in the building. This year, in December and November, there were leaks coming out.
But you know who they didn't get rid of, Luca? They didn't get rid of Jaime.
No.
They didn't get rid of
They didn't get rid of those two. They didn't get rid of Ira Axelrod. The same Woody cronies are in place now.
Right.
They can hire whoever they want.
And so he's basically saying, you could tell me, oh, I'm not the leak, but Brick or Jaime could be leaking this stuff and say they're not doing it, and he'll believe them.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on, man. You're exactly right, 100%.
And Mike Florio, who I'm not a fan of at all, he writes for PFN. Pro Football Talk, actually, not PFN. He said it perfectly. I agree with him on this. If you're sending out people, if you're buying out people, if you're laying off people because of leaks, the issue is way deeper. It's Woody Johnson and himself. And whenever you see the Jets post on social media, they are so tone deaf. They post the most ridiculous stuff ever.
I know.
It's ridiculous even when they're losing. It's like hearing from the peanut gallery. They're awful.
Yeah. Well, because they're putting this whole like thing with and I love those videos from One Jets Drive and those are good. But it's like you're trying to put lipstick on a pig, bro.
Exactly.
It's like come on, man. It's like you putting this. You can't shine a turd, right? A turd's going to be a turd no matter what. So I love the videos, but I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's like, Gase would have been probably the end had we not, decided to kind of, I mean, even then we didn't even go in the right direction.
No.
It's like we can't win. It's like we can't win ever. So.
And again, that's the kind of the mind. Like, I'm going to be open-minded to this regime. I'm going to hope they succeeded. Like all Jeff fans, really. I'm going to hope they succeed, but you can't, in my opinion, the final thing I'll say about Woody Johnson. You can't ignore that he's been a problem. A, B, you can't ignore all the changes in the last 14 years, the same processes, the same empty words. It's just like, he's there and he's evidently the problem. Like my biggest fear, Vinny, is that he's going to be the one to once again interject himself like he knows something about football. And that's going to be the downfall of this regime. I'm not saying, again, final words, I'm not saying Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh did a great job, but once he started to meddle and he started firing Joe Douglas's employees, that was bad. And my original opinion of that last season was you should have fired Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh the year prior.
You can't fire a coach 5 games in because you see what happened to the defense.
Yeah.
When they fired him. We digress. I mean, we regressed big time defensively.
Oh yeah.
So you can't do that, man. I've never been a proponent of firing a coach mid-season unless like it's real. I mean, it was bad, but I mean, you had the chance to fire him at the beginning of the season, like you said. And you didn't. You should have just let him finish the season out.
I agree.
I thought so. I mean, I know a lot of fans were saying, "Oh, fire Saleh, blah blah blah," but
yeah,
I don't think you fire a coach in the middle of the year.
No, that disrupts a lot of things, and I was
It
more
does.
of firing him the season before. But
Right.
regardless,
Right.
and another thing with the whole Woody Johnson thing, and the Jets have been a bad destination. And we're gonna kind of sink this right into free agency.
Mm-hmm.
What do you, first of all, before we get into our thought, we'll break down the individual signings. I made some categories. I
Right.
did the big signings, the more lucrative signings. We'll obviously get into that. Justin Fields, Brandon
Mm-hmm.
Stevens, and Cisco. I did obviously the re-signing of Sherwood, but also you have some categories with depth and also low risk, high reward, which I
Mm-hmm.
think was the whole motto of what Darren Mucci and Aaron Glenn were doing. So, Vinny, I'll let you open once again. What were your thoughts on the Jets free agency plan and approach?
You know, it wasn't. It was. It was kind. It's funny because it's kind of a split between: are we rebuilding, which they're saying we're not, or are we trying to win? And I know every coach and every general manager is always saying they're trying to win, but some of these signings, like, I don't know, I'll give you one for example. Like, by the way, the Cisco, I like the Cisco signing because
I do too.
that was one that I called for. But let's say I don't know, like a Tyler Johnson.
Yeah,
He's a depth guy. And a lot of these signings were like bargain signings.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you're trying to sell the fan base on we're trying to win, some of those signings were lackluster. Even signing Justin Fields to a 2-year deal. I understand you don't want to be caught where Minnesota was caught last year
Right.
with Darnold by like only signing him to a 1-year deal, and then he has a great year and then you lose him. Because if Fields does have a good year, then at least you can keep him.
Yeah.
For 1 more year. That was smart. But then some of the, like, I don't know if Brandon Stevens is worth 3 years, 36 million, 23 guaranteed.
Yeah.
You know, so
I think my vision aligns with yours. My whole thing is like, what's the plan? Because I think a lot of people are starting to realize this is a bit of a rebuild, retool year. But it's weird because with some of the releases they did, they cut CJ Mosley, they cut Aaron Rodgers. If you're going to rebuild this year, you might as well take all the cap hits.
mm-hmm.
Why are you doing post? And we're not trying to be negative; we're just objectively criticizing. Post June 1st on Aaron Rodgers. Why are you not taking all of the cap hit this year? CJ Mosley, he's going to be a post June 1st. Why are you not taking all the hit this year? Same thing with Alan Lazard. Why is he still on the team? Take all of the hit this year.
Yep.
That goes for every player that they cut that has any kind of dead money or void years. Take it all this year. So next year, you can have a lot of money to spend. A, B, you could spend it lucratively. C, next year, a lot of people, including myself, also kind of depend on what happens this year as well. But I think for the most part, are going to expect the Jets to be a competitive playoff team next year because this is no longer the NFL of the 5-year plan where, okay, we'll win 3 games this year, 5 games next year, 7 games the next, blah, 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 blah. This year, or I should say this new age of the NFL, you're seeing so many teams rebuild in 1 to 2 years, retool. You saw the Chargers. They were mediocre under Brandon Staley. Quick turnaround with Jim Harbaugh. Well,
Right.
so we have yet to see what the Patriots do with Mike Vrabel. You have the Broncos with Sean Payton. Perfect example. Jacksonville Jaguars for about a year. You're seeing all these teams, including Houston Texans are a perfect example, who could just flip the script in 1 year. Why can't that be the Jets? But if you're really rebuilding this year, and another thing I'll include as well, they're really banking on their coaching with some of these signings. Tyler Johnson, Stone Smart,
Mm-hmm.
Josh Reynolds. You got some of the depth guys like Tefeli and all these different cats in the defensive line. Derek Anati was a worse player than I thought. It's just like you look at these signings, like you don't want to call the coaching staff arrogant because you have no idea how they are. They're not, we don't know if they're bad or good, but a lot of what you're doing is you're banking on the coaching staff, coming into their own and figuring it out. This is no experienced coaching staff, Vinny. This is relatively all new guys with a lot of unproven guys, especially if you're going to try to rebuild Justin Fields' career with a first-time offensive coordinator and a first-time quarterback. I should say a first-time quarterback coach, but he's been around and hasn't been great results.
Right. But I will say, when pressed, if you listen to Aaron Glenn, he pushed back from I think it was Cimini asked him the question or told him about, he's like, well, you didn't watch him then. So Glenn already, I like Glenn's approach because he's not afraid of the media. And you didn't mention the Detroit Lions were one of those teams where
Absolutely.
they
That's
turned it
correct.
around. So I think what this hiring is telling you is that they're trying to catch the same, I guess you could say, lightning in a bottle,
Yeah.
because they got Muji from Denver, who
Mhm.
caught lightning in a bottle with Bo Nix, obviously, and with Detroit, trying to get a
Mhm.
little bit of that, infused. The only way that works, though, is if you have an owner, again, and I hate to go back to Woody again, because if you look at the Detroit Lions, they were run like crap for so many years until the
That's
owner
absolutely
said,
true.
she said, you know what? I'm just going to let the football people do football things.
The
And they did. And we thought Campbell was the biggest joke I thought he was the
press
biggest
conference.
joke
Yeah,
press
everybody thought
conference
so with the
wise.
press conference. They thought he was a joke. Look at him now.
And look at him now. Look at him now. Now they may be a perennial playoff team, depending on, what their final roster looks like. But even if their roster doesn't look that way, they're gonna coach them up. But I don't know, man. It's tough to be. It's hard to be positive with this team and see these signings
Mhm.
up and down and say, the one, Cisco, yes, but even, and like I said, the Field signing, I did like it,
Yeah,
but man, I was in the camp, and you're going to disagree with me.
I'm listening.
I was in the camp of keeping Aaron Rodgers, and you definitely, I know,
Ooh.
will disagree with me. I was in the camp of Kevin when he said keep Aaron Rodgers, and with our buddy Jake Asman over there. If
Mhm.
you're going to try to win, I mean, he wasn't bad towards the end of the season, and it takes a while to get over one of those injuries like he had. So if you give him another year, I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't see the. I don't know, man. It just didn't seem to me like. But new coaching staff, you kind of got to go with the flow, really. But that was
Yeah,
just my opinion on it.
absolutely. And now we'll transition into the free agency signings. Obviously, you take the stance that the Jets should have kept Aaron Rodgers, and I was against that stance. Obviously, we fundamentally disagree, which is fine. So the Jets went out and signed Justin Fields. We'll start with the first signing because it's funny because when Sean found out, our buddy Sean found out that he's obviously a Steelers fan, found out that Fields was leaving for the Jets. He was not very happy, and it's interesting because Fields was kind of a game manager this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were 4-2 when he was with the team. I'll show up some of his stats in a second. Here we go. He's 26 years old. Signed about a 2-year, $40 million contract, $30 million guaranteed. Could you say it was a bit of an overpay? I guess, but you're kind of taking a shot at the dartboard, you want to say, and it's not like a ton of money. And I think they structured the contract nicely. He'll be the starting quarterback, and I'll ask you this, Vinny, as well. It's a part of the contract, and I think it was alluded to by U Stadium, who does a great job over there, great sources and all that stuff, that he's going to be the starting quarterback right out of the gate.
Mhm.
Do you think there should be some sort of competition? Because I think there should be too. Because yes, it's Justin Fields was looking for a starting job, and I thought he played well enough, like okay, but it wasn't a great sample size. But at the same time, Tyrod's not that bad either. So
Mhm.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I think uh I think Aaron Glenn and Muji had a little bit of a difference in opinion, I guess, because I think Aaron Glenn told us competition's going to be the key, and that he was going to, every position is going to compete for a spot. But then Muji came out and said, "Well, he's our starter," and then you paid him pretty much starter money.
Exactly.
It's it's hard to say, but I honestly don't think this is a I don't think this is going to be a competition. And Tyrod does deserve a spot. And actually, Jordan Travis, if he's ready, he deserves a shot too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Jordan Travis was too happy that we signed Justin Fields, really, because if he's ready to go, obviously coming out of college, he would have been probably a top 3, top 5 pick if he was healthy. I mean, a lot of people, some people may disagree with that, but he was playing very well at Florida State. So, um, I think you're going to see. I think I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of competition in a lot of different positions,
Mhm.
but I think they're going to give Fields a little bit more of a leash because of the contract and just because of, but again, if if what's his name, if Tyrod Taylor plays a lot better, I mean, you almost have to give him the job, don't you? I
Exactly.
mean, but it's going to be interesting to see. I guess I don't know the direct answer to that question because it's not going to be. I mean, I don't know. It's not going to be black and white. I mean, and he even
No.
said it's written in pencil.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
because
It's
you
a
have
depth
to
chart
make, he's like,
written in
yeah,
pencil. It's not
because you
permanent
have to
marker.
make a depth chart. That's just the league we are in. That's what Glenn
Oh, yeah,
said.
absolutely.
So I mean, maybe I don't know. I mean, I know it's not a great answer, but man, it's just it's tough when a coach says, yeah, every position is going to compete, and then your general manager comes out and says, well, he's our starter.
Yeah.
That's kind of a mix up in communication, I think there.
Yeah, it could be possible, new regime and all those different things. If you want my preference, not that I hate the Field signing. I actually like it, just like you do, Vinny. My
Mhm.
preference was actually Jameis Winston. He came cheaper to the Giants. He went to a backup role. He'll be backing up Russell Wilson. Obviously, there might be an open competition there, but I think Wilson's probably going to be the starter, most likely.
Mhm.
But Winston, I felt like in this kind of year where the Jets are going to be like rebuilding and you're trying to evaluate as much talent as possible, especially on the offensive side of the ball, why not get me a gunslinger like
Mhm.
Jameis Winston? He throws a lot of interceptions, but he throws the ball deep. He's going to get Garrett Wilson his yards. And just to break in Justin Fields, obviously Winston and Fields are different quarterbacks. Winston is not much of a pocket. He's more of a pocket quarterback as opposed to Fields, who can run outside the pocket. You could run a lot of read options with him. And I'll break down the stats and some of his attributes that I read up upon. Started 6 games, as I mentioned. He played about 10 because they used him in some packages with running. He had a 71.5 PFF grade last year, ranking 36 among 75 quarterbacks, 65.8% completion rating, which is above NFL average, 1,106 passing yards, 5 touchdowns to an interception. He also had 5 rushing touchdowns as well, 6.9 yards per attempt, which is usually below the league average. Same thing with 110.6 passing yards per game. So basically, what the Jets are telling us is if Fields is the starter, it's going to be ground and pound offense. And we also heard Aaron Glenn say, Brees Hall, he's great and all, but we're going to go running back up by committee. I'm interested
Mhm.
to see if the Jets will draft a running back. Excuse me. Obviously, we'll cover that in another show, but some other things: 93.34 passer rating, right around average, 62 rushes for 289 yards. But I read some attributes, and this was covered, I believe, by Jets X Factor. They do a great job. Athletic quarterback with high rushing upside. We know that. Offers different wrinkles with RPOs, bootlegs, plenty of play action, arm strength is visible. The problems with him, though, struggles outside the pocket. His accuracy plummets and his footwork's not great. Ability to read defenses and his low passing numbers remain a concern. He can be trigger shy, which is a confidence thing. Very, very scheme specific, Vinny. So the Jets will really have to, like, it. Justin Fields is right now a ball of clay. They really got to mold it to perfection.
I, I think some of this, though, a lot of this attribute stuff, you know, Garrett Wilson's going to help him with a lot of this because he
Oh,
knows Garrett.
absolutely.
I think the trigger shot thing, he's not going to be afraid to throw it to Garrett Wilson. I guarantee you
No.
that. Um, and we'll get into it later about receivers wise, but I think Garrett's going to help him a lot more. And a lot of these attributes, I mean, yeah, he's going to run, but I still think having Garrett is going to help him a ton, a ton. But again, we, I've what was you remember the last game manager we had, right? Of a
If it
quarterback
wasn't Aaron Rodgers, I guess
was
you got to go back to
you got to go back a little. You got to go back a ways. We made the AFC Championship game
Mark
twice.
Sanchez.
Yep. And if now you have to have a shutdown defense in order to play
Absolutely.
that way. So I'm and this is just a guess. I'm thinking Glenn's thinking just get us with like keep us in the game
Hmm.
and we'll get the ball back for you in good field position. And then you can either use those legs or throw short passes. And this
Got
may
it.
be, and I don't know if this is going to be the strategy. I hope it's not, because it's going to be really boring football all year. But I don't know if you watched a lot of that 2009, 2010. I mean, it was exciting for bits, especially on the defensive side, but the offensive side wasn't as like, wide open, especially under Rex. But I think you're going to see a lot of that same type of offense under Glenn. And we don't know what kind of offensive coordinator we have. So that's another thing. So
Going back to Robert Saleh, and he was very conservative coach, and I hope Aaron Glenn doesn't take this mindset. Like, I think there's a happy medium between Dan Campbell, who's overly aggressive with the analytics. Same thing with a little bit John Harbaugh as well, versus like a Robert Saleh, who was more of the guy like, oh, get to 20 points. That's the justification, and we'll have the defense do the rest. I don't think that's how it's like in the NFL. As I said, I think there's a happy medium. That's why my preference was Jameis Winston. In a year where you're trying to find out certain things, especially with the quarterback position. Not saying Winston would have been the end all be all, but to get Garrett Wilson happy, get him his yards and all that. Again, not just against Justin Fields, but I'm really intrigued to see what this offense can do under Fields. How creative will Tanner Engstrand be, and what's their mindset offensively?
right, you're going to have to be with a guy that's. I mean, trust me, Fields is going to be dynamic. He's going to be something that we haven't had. Like, I don't remember the last. Like, I mean, have we ever had a running quarterback before, or a quarterback that can
Geno
use his
Smith?
legs to Geno to a certain extent, yeah. But I mean, I think this is going to. I mean, because look at the NFL now. You have to
Yeah,
have somebody that's mobile back there.
exactly.
So why not have a guy that's mobile? And again, he didn't. And looking at all the stats, he didn't play that bad.
No, I don't
I
think he
mean, he
did.
was 36 to 75 on PFF scale. That's like middle of the road, but
Yeah.
he won 4 games for him, and then they yanked him. So, who knows what would have happened there. So, um, I'm expecting. I'm hoping that the quarterback's not going to be the part where we're going to lose it. I think
Mhm.
there's going to be a few other areas where we'll be looking at that we may end up deciding, hey, maybe that wasn't such a good idea,
Mhm.
because he's going to need people to throw to, and
Oh,
Garrett
absolutely.
Wilson's not going to be, just because you double team Garrett Wilson all day, and if you don't have a receiver on the other side,
Oh, absolutely.
we've seen that show before,
Yeah,
right?
way
So,
too many times. But outside the Justin Fields aspect, we basically covered our bases there. We like the signing overall. But I think both of us could agree we're very intrigued by what
yes,
Tanner Engstrand's going to do.
yes.
So we'll go to the defensive side of the ball. And this was a signing that was met with a lot of question marks, especially replacing DJ Reed for the better part of 3 years was a really good cornerback. I'd say definitely outplayed his contract value.
I
We're going to go to
hated
Brandon.
getting rid of him. By the way, I
Yeah,
hated getting rid of Reed.
he wanted out too, if we're going to be
I
fair.
know, I know, I know, but
But
hated it.
his replacement is former Baltimore Ravens cornerback Brandon Stevens. Just a little inside information. He's going to be an outside cornerback. He's 27 years old. He's also played the safety spot. 3 years, $36 million on the contract, and $23 million guaranteed. He's had 48 starts with the Ravens, can play cornerback and safety, as I remarked. 6'1" on the outside. Vinny, your thoughts on this one?
Um, he when he was with the Ravens last year, he was the weaker side, and he got picked on a lot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot. Like nobody wanted to pick on Humphrey, because Humphrey is like the all pro on that
Yeah.
squad. Um, but he regressed a little bit, because he wasn't that bad the year before, and then all of a sudden, teams were picking on him, and then he got picked on a lot, and he gave up a lot. He gave up a few, big plays, and you know, I don't. It's going to be the same as if he thinks he's getting out of Baltimore and saying, well, I'm not going to be on an island, he's going to be on an island because
Oh yeah.
he's gonna get picked on here too. And he's gonna have to learn. And I hope, and this is where, like you said, the coaching is gonna come in. I'm hoping that Glenn can coach him up because Glenn has spoken highly of him. Somebody asked him, I think they asked him twice about Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves this kid, but I don't know, man. Seeing him in Baltimore last year, I don't like this signing when there were other corners to be had.
I agree.
And you had one, even though I know he didn't want to come back. I don't know, man. But you got Michael Carter, you got Sauce, who hopefully will take a step forward as opposed to regressing anymore. And Stevens just I don't know, man. I guess it's kind of a wait and see. Show me you can recover from last year. Because I think, wasn't last year his contract year too?
Yes, last year was a contract year.
I mean, and he had a bad contract year too, which is totally crazy, right? So when you have a contract year, you want to show out, and you got the ball thrown to you a lot. You would think that you would play a lot better, and he didn't. So I don't know, man. I want to hear what you think about it, but
yeah,
I'm not really into it.
I'm in the same line with you. I think it's a bit of a head scratcher. I looked more into the details. Ravens fans, basically in the comment sections of these, were like, Jets fans, he's not good. We wanted him to get off the team. And I'm not sure if even the Ravens made an effort to re-sign him, because that's one of those things that kind of irks me a little bit, or at least, makes my head scratch, or scratch my head at least.
Right.
Like when a really good team like the Ravens doesn't try to re-sign a player like that, that's what concerns me, especially with a really good defensive coaching
And
staff.
they've been known for defense, the Ravens, for years.
Exactly.
And they didn't want him back.
And you said it perfectly. You talked about they're not picking on Marlon Humphrey. They're not picking on Kyle Hamilton. They're not picking on Nate Wiggins at all. They're picking on Brandon Stevens. And here's some different things just in terms of his 2024 stats. PFF grade ranked about 55.8, which ranked 153 out of 222 cornerbacks, bottom of the barrel. His run defense, however, is a plus, 70.7 per PFF, ranked 50th out of 222 corners. Pass defense, 174th out of 222 cornerbacks. He allowed 66 receptions for 906 yards and 4 touchdowns in coverage. Passer rating allowed 107, which was 12 points below the league average. Some attributes as well. I brought up the run defense. He's a good run defender with a low missed tackle rate, 6.7%. He does have good speed and forces quarterbacks to make tight window throws. He was top 6 in the NFL in percent of the time the opposing quarterback was forced to make a tight window throw with less than 1 yard of separation, that being 33.7%, which also Sauce Gardner was in that top 6, so credit to him. This was obviously with Stevens as the nearest defender, but here are the flaws. Awful ball skills. He's only had 2 interceptions in his career. 10.2% ball hawk rate. Deflection interception percentage, which is relative to how much a cornerback is targeted. 98 targets last year, 10 breakups, which is about 4 points below average. Also, completion percentage over expected, 9.5%, which is 81st out of 83rd.
That's terrible. That is terrible.
That's bad.
That's terrible.
Even worse, the Jets. What have they been known for the last couple of years, especially defensively? Penalties. 6 defensive pass interferences last year. 6. That's troubling. Right. And the one thing that I watched in the film, Jet X Factor, again, I saw the same thing with Fields. They did a great job with breaking him down, and they did with Stevens as well. He's got an eye for the ball. He's got speed. He just does not know when to turn his head. That's been the big issue. He either turns his head too early or he turns his head too late.
That's what causes your PIs. That's
exactly.
What causes your PIs,
it's a lack of concentration. It's a lack of knowing where the ball is. There would be times where he's matching up with the receiver. He has the speed. He looks back too early. The receiver gains just a little pitch more separation on him, and it makes the difference. And the same thing goes for when he's tight in coverage. He grabs too much. He's sticky. But when he panics and doesn't see where the ball is, he starts to hold. And that's where you get 6 defensive penalties from. And
And
my question to you, Vinny, is I hate to interrupt.
no, you're
How
good.
high is his ceiling as a Jet? Even if he becomes good or like he these little attributes somewhat get better. He's 26. How better can he possibly be?
That's the thing is he hasn't really. If you're regressing at 27, that's probably a good sign that you may not ever be. You may be at best a middle of the road corner.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, let me ask you, how many times does a corner play in the box to be so good at run defense? I mean,
not a lot.
How many times are we playing? Unless they're going to play some kind of exotic scheme where, I don't know, the corner's up on the line of scrimmage. I mean, did it have anything there about like him rushing the passer? I mean, I don't remember.
I want to see if he has like
I
some
don't
sort of
think he
pass
had.
rush grade.
I mean, he may have a pass rush grade, but
how many times has he blitzed is the question.
Yeah, I'm guessing maybe some of that run defense came on the outside on blitzes and stuff. I don't know, but I mean, you don't see a corner in the box a lot unless they're blitzing.
No.
So
just to get great job by PFF for covering this. He has a 92.9 grade as a pass rusher for a corner. Obviously, that's skewed a little bit because he was only 59th in pass rush snaps, only 4 pass rush snaps all season.
Okay,
and
so he wasn't even playing up in the box a lot then.
Exactly. And the thing is with the new scheme that'll be implemented by Steve Wilkes, I think it was a good hire, by the way. It's a 4-2-5 system. It's not a 4-3 anymore. And more emphasis is placed on the back half. So if Stevens really is bad, he's really bad.
Oh, and that's the same thing that can be said for coverages.
Exactly. And that's the same thing that can be said about Sauce Gardner. If he really improves, he's really good because that's what the scheme emphasizes. And the scheme emphasizes man-to-man press coverage. This isn't a system anymore where it's just be like, zone, cover 3, cover this, cover that.
Doesn't he play a lot of single high safety? Doesn't he play
cover one
high safety too? Yeah.
Cover 1. We'll bring up Cisco in a little bit, but this is like it's a head scratching signing, as I said, and you said, Vinny, but this is like a true test. And this was a great quote from Jimmy Smith, because Jimmy Smith, a former Pro Bowl cornerback with the Baltimore Ravens, he remarked, when teams are targeting you like that, it's very hard to gain confidence because every game you're getting 12 targets and his teammates are getting like 8. And then you read one thing or somebody says one thing and your confidence goes down. As a cornerback, your confidence is probably, besides your athletic ability, number 1. I want to say your confidence is 1B. You just need to be as confident as your athletic to play corner. And if he has a confidence issue, that's even more of a problem.
Right. I mean, how many wide receivers go out there and start talking trash to the cornerback they're going to go against? Plenty. And if you're not there to like I mean, look at the great ones, Jalen Ramsey, those guys. They talk trash back. This guy, I'm gonna be like, just prove it to me, man.
Yeah.
You didn't really do anything. If a wide receiver walks up to him and says, "Hey, I'm gonna have a field day today with you," and he goes out and gives up like 2 touchdowns in a game against that same guy, and look, we have and I know. We're going to have good receivers in our division. We got good receivers in our division.
Jalen Waddle.
And we're going to have Stephon Diggs too. He's coming back.
That's right, Stephon Diggs.
So, and we have good quarterbacks in our division. Once they see, they're like sharks, man. Once they see the blood in the water, they're going to go for it, man. It's not going to be this like, you get a rest. And granted, he wasn't getting rest in his division either, but you're not going to get any rest in the NFL. You're going to get picked on every game because they're not going to want to go to Sauce's side. They're not going to want to go to the slot with Michael Carter. They're going to want to go to you. So, I mean, I hope it works out because I'm a Jets fan.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna be surprised if we are in there on Sunday doing a live stream, me and you, and saying, "Well, there's another busted coverage by Stevens again." Yeah. I'm not going to be surprised, and I'm going to tell you this right now.
I'm not going to be surprised either. I like to remark. And the thing is with Saleh, and hopefully Glenn catches an eye on this. Obviously, we remarked Stevens is going to be cornerback 2, not cornerback 1. One of the biggest problems I had with Saleh, and this was 2023, 2024 stuff, even when early on in his career, was whenever the the top corner would never shadow the top receiver. He wouldn't. Rarely did
Right.
you ever see Sauce or whoever the top corner was for the Jets at 2021 or whatever just follow the top receiver. It was never going to happen.
That goes back
Hopefully,
to Seattle days, though. That goes back to like Richard Sherman,
yeah,
all those guys. They never did that either. So that's why when if you recall, when they were comparing Sherman to Revis, Revis would go side to side, right?
yeah,
Sherman never did. So Sherman always used the excuse, hey, or Revis would use the same excuse, would use the thing like, hey, I guard the top guys. You don't even travel. Sometimes you're
exactly.
guarding receiver 2 or receiver 3 sometimes. So, I mean, we'll see what happens though. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the defense is going to be way different, but
Yeah.
he better show up on Sundays or we're going to have a really bad
Yeah, as I said,
a bad time, man.
As I said with the scheme, the new scheme, if you're really good at if Sauce Gardner, really breaks out, he's going to show you he's an elite corner because of the system, because it's his emphasis.
Right.
If Brandon Stevens is plays poorly, that means he's really bad. And the thing, like my last remark on this, you kind of just hope that Aaron Glenn has that kind of intuition because he was a former cornerback.
Right.
He's like, okay, he'll be like, okay, I like his speed, I like his stickiness. Maybe there's just something I can adjust with this game. But again, my issue is as well how good he can he be at 27 years old.
Right, exactly, and I agree with that.
So also, we'll move back in the secondary a little bit. This was just a 1-year contract issued by the Jets. I had to ask my buddy Jacob from Jaguars channel. I'll get that in a second. Great guy, Jacob. I think it was Cardiac Cats, if I'm not mistaken. Go check him out. Andre Cisco signed by the Jets. And Vinny, I think you even remarked, this wasn't obviously on here, but you said the Jets would sign Cisco.
Because I wanted Cisco. I wanted Cisco. I wanted Cisco when free agency started. So, yeah.
Understandable.
Definitely.
So, he's younger than Stevens. He's 25 years old. He's 6'0", 210 pounds. About a 1-year, $10 million contract. $10 million contract, not bad. Going to be the deep safety, free safety. And obviously, the alternative that the Jets have besides Andre Cisco is Tony Adams. And if I'm going to be honest, Vinny, I'm not a big fan of Tony Adams. I like Cisco more. I think Tony Adams was a little bit overrated by the Jets coaching staff.
Right.
But at least this brings some stability. Because if you just look at the safety room the last couple of years, we had Jordan Whitehead in 2022, 2023. He was not good. He was, in my opinion, he disappointed. You had LaMarcus Joyner. He was terrible in 22.
Right.
And then there was I'm trying to remember who also played safety alongside Adams last year. Why am I forgetting?
Ashton Davis?
I mean, it was Ashton Davis. Yes, there's somebody who I'm thinking of. It's completely escaped. Safety from the Ravens. Hold on. Why
Chuck Clark.
Chuck Clark. He disappointed me too because he was like one of those guys with a low tackle rate that was praised, and he was just so bad. He was out of place. He was missing.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised when they brought him back and they let Whitehead go that he was going to be the starter, and I was like, okay, well, we're cool there, I guess, but he didn't pan out to be, as advertised, really.
And this I'll bring up for our next show, which obviously deals with the draft. The Jets really haven't drafted safeties in a while. But Cisco, let's get into him. He had biggest thing about Cisco, I was told, Vinny, he's a ball hawk. He had 1 interception last year, about 22 return yards, 7 pass defenses, 68 tackles, 44 solo, 1 tackle for loss. In run defense, he was ranked as a 63.7, which ranked 98th of 171 safeties. Pass defense, 56.7, which ranked 110th out of 171 safeties. His passer rating as the nearest defender, 79.2, which ranked 18th out of 70 safeties and a minimum of 250 coverage snaps. Allowed 30 receptions on 592 yards and 3 touchdowns, 19.7 yards per completion, and 110.9 passer rating allowed. He effectively fills the Jets' weakest defensive position, as remarked. Good ball skills, suits well for cover 1D. And he was actually, from 2022 to 2023, ranked top 4 in safeties for interceptions.
So my question is why a 1-year deal and not a 2-year deal? Because if he shows out in his 1 year and he does really well, I mean, I know the market for safeties is, I think, pretty low right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to double check, but
I mean, I guess you don't have to do it now, but
oh, of course, yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think it's very high. And but if he shows out, why not give him a 2-year deal so that
Right.
at least we have him for another year? The other thing is I had heard something about he did complain a lot about the Jaguars teammates that they gave
Mhm.
up. So I'm kind of wondering why he would go to a team that unfortunately probably, I mean, if you look at the Jaguars and the Jets, they're not too far off as far as like,
They're comparable.
you know, so he's gonna voice his opinion, which may be good for us, you know.
Yeah,
But I don't want a guy that's gonna cause problems in the locker room either.
absolutely.
Um, so, but again, I like the player. I think he's gonna be good for us. I don't think there's a good amount of safeties in this draft anyway. When we go to our draft show, I'll have to double check, but um, I think this was a good pickup for sure, and I liked it. Obviously, I wanted it. And yeah, the Glenn definitely plays a lot of cover one, so he's going to be out there on his own, and he's going to be fitting that you know that role where he's going to have to kind of roll to one side or another
Yeah.
depending on what he reads. So we'll see though. All his metrics kind of go with he's going to be better, and he's only 25.
Yeah, that's a
So
good thing.
that's the good thing about him. Again, I just wish we had signed him to a 2-year deal because if he shows out in year one, I don't want to lose him. And
Exactly.
that's and if you're building a team, you want to keep your best players.
Yeah, you want to build somewhat of a foundation, 25 years old, very young. And I think the one thing as to why the Jets signed him to a 1-year contract instead of a 2, he didn't have a great year last year. So I
Right.
guess they're banking
Right.
on, okay, if he replicates his 2023 production, maybe he's extension eligible. Maybe we could just give him like a 2-year extension or something like
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
But I think it was one of those low risk, high rewards, not necessarily like, oh, he was a bad player, but he was good in 2023. A lot of
Right.
Jaguar fans thought he would break out in 24, but obviously that didn't happen. It
Mhm.
wasn't just him. Let's call it what it is. It was fairly most of the Jaguars defense that was horrible.
Yeah, but if you think about it, when he said that the team gave up, he's probably thinking to himself like, "Why should I? This is my this is my contract year. Why should I show out?" But then again, you don't want a guy that's going to kind of give up on you anyway either.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know if a lot of that had to do with like he was on a bad team, but again, if he's coached up right and Aaron Glenn can get the most out of him and Steve Wilkes can, which I think Steve Wilkes will be able to.
Yeah.
Um, I think he's going to be a good one, and he probably I would call it now. I think he's going to be on our team for a couple more years, if and what you said makes sense too. If because he did have not a great year last year, so I think he'll bounce back this year.
Yeah, I hope so. And also another thing about him is he had a low missed tackle rate, but does sometimes tend to go for the big hit. But we still stick with the defensive side of the ball. This is actually a re-signing. Some people expected this player to go. Another player's future is in question. That is linebacker Jamian Sherwood. The Jets re-signed him to a 3-year, $45 million deal. He's 25 years old, just like Cisco, 6'2", 216 pounds. Starting linebacker in the base 4-2-5. Vinny, I'll have your thoughts on this one first.
Yeah, him and Quincy were the leaders of the defense last year. Um, and when they asked Sherwood to take on a bigger role as far as like calling the plays and being the quarterback of the defense, he stepped right up. So I do like this signing. The only issue is that are we going to lose Quincy because we signed him to a 3-year 45? Teams don't sign linebackers like they sign other positions.
No.
So it doesn't hold good for Quincy, but I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I do love I love the re-sign, and I had been saying that this needed to get done for sure. But again, it may cost us Quincy, but you can't keep everybody, and I understand that. But for a safety that was converted to a linebacker, if you remember when he was
He
drafted,
was.
people were like, well, he's a safety. They're going to be able to do this linebacker thing because Saleh had done that in San Francisco, where he turned a lot of the
That's right.
safeties into linebackers. Um, and it worked for him there. It didn't work as well here, but it did work with Sherwood. So if you
Right.
remember, I think they took like two or three safeties in one of the drafts or two of the drafts, and they were going to convert him to linebacker, and they tried, and it worked really well with Sherwood. And you know, this is a great re-sign, but again, Quincy maybe on the outside looking in next year.
Yeah, one of those safeties that was also drafted by the Jets that year was Hamza Nasruddin. I forget. I think he might have been out of Florida State or
Yeah,
something
and
like that.
that one did not work as
Did
well
not
as
pan out. And Sherwood, another thing about Sherwood, he was a fifth round selection. Same thing as Michael Carter, same
right,
draft as Michael Carter.
right.
Obviously, Michael Carter just got
So
extended like
so
a
I mean,
couple
as
months
much as
ago.
we want to blame Douglas for a lot of stuff, he
Yeah,
did
that
make
was a nice
some
find.
really good picks. So
Yeah, those two were some nice finds, but more about Sherwood. Last year, 158 tackles, 98 solo, 10 tackles for loss, 3 pass defenses, 2 quarterback hits, 2 sacks. Run defense ranked 40th out of 189 linebackers with a 77.1 grade. Pass defense 66.2, ranked 39th out of 189 linebackers. As we mentioned, he's a converted safety to linebacker. I believe he's a well-balanced linebacker with ability to provide support and run D and play in coverage. I'm curious as to whether he's going to flourish in a very blitz-heavy defense. He's also
good
efficient with a low
question.
missed tackle rate, but I will also include my thoughts on the whole Quincy Williams thing. Quincy Williams, great player. I think he was an All-Pro about a year ago. I could be wrong on that, but it's one of those things where you're gonna, as you said, Vinny, you can't keep everyone. How much money are you gonna allocate to the linebacker
Yeah,
position?
yeah. Normally teams don't allocate a lot of money to linebacker.
And,
Yeah,
yeah, that's gonna be interesting. And I mentioned the blitz thing. I'm very curious to see how and I felt this way last year. I didn't really see it in 23. I saw it last year, 24, where a lot of people started seeing him, including myself. Sherwood hadn't quite broke out. I remember, I think it was middle of the season, it was early the season. CJ Mosley got hurt, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
And when Sherwood was on the field as opposed to Mosley, defense was a lot quicker.
right,
They were a
right,
lot
right,
faster.
right. And you're gonna see the linebackers play. I mean, because you remember you're getting Jermaine Johnson back,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have Will McDonald on the other side more than likely. Or they're gonna rotate the two. I don't know how that's gonna work, but
Yeah.
um, you're gonna have. I mean, you're gonna have some good pass rush there. And again, pass rush, I don't think is going to be an issue with us. I think
No.
we're going to be fine there. But the middle, you got to work up the middle. The way I see it is you got to start offensive line, defensive line, and then you work your way out. And I mean, start from the inside and work your way out.
Absolutely.
You don't start from the outside and work your way in. That's where teams kind of lose it. And I don't get that, that thinking. But I again, this is good, but I really like Quincy too, man. It's tough
Yeah.
to have to lose a guy like that because he's always so like,
He's a leader and he has
he's a
energy to him.
leader. Yeah, and if I don't know his metrics on like covering like out of the back, backs out of the backfield and stuff. I think he did a pretty good job covering,
I think
in
you don't
coverage
even
he did really good, I thought.
you don't even have to list the numbers. I think visually he was just fine covering linebackers and tight
Yeah.
ends out
I
of the
mean, and wouldn't
formation.
you want two linebackers that can cover, cover that can run it, go into coverage? I don't know, man. I mean, is there a place where we could sacrifice and keep Quincy? I don't know, because you have so many deficiencies on the offensive side of the ball that
Exactly.
I think you may not be able to keep Quincy, and that's going to be a shame. So
And the one thing I worry about too is obviously with this whole culture thing, forming a new culture, you don't want Quincy holding out and causing a ruckus heading into training camp. That would be
right.
the
Well, then
worst.
that may affect his brother too. So that's another
Yeah,
factor. So you
that
gotta remember that.
absolutely. And the thing about Quincy too, we talk about, making something out of nothing. Quincy Williams was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2019. 2021, he's cut. He's on the waiver wire at the end of preseason. The Jets pick him up. I don't think he was good in 21 or 22. 23
No.
and 24, phenomenal.
They coached him up good though.
Oh yeah,
The one
absolutely.
again, the
Gotta
one
give him
thing
credit.
Saleh did was, I mean, they coached up their players well enough to play. Like some of the guys, see, the problem I had with Saleh was just discipline. There was no
Exactly.
discipline on the defensive side of the ball
Can't agree more.
or on the offensive side of the ball. There's too many penalties, and you know that eventually got him fired, being too much of a player's coach.
Yeah. So we broke down the four main big signings. I have listed three in the low risk, high reward category, and I think we should start with somebody who has had familiarity with the Lions, and that will be wide receiver Josh Reynolds. Now, Reynolds has been around a little bit. I believe he's 30 years old. Going to pull up his statistics now. He's 30. 1 year, about up to $5 million in guarantees. Questioning what his role is like. It's a buy low deal, plenty of veteran experience. Didn't have a great year last year, and this is kind of what me and you agree on in terms of what's the vision for the wide receiver room, because you obviously can't have Garrett Wilson. Alan Lazard, we don't know what his future is. We don't know what Malachi Corley is. So, Josh Reynolds, I think, is a great wide receiver 4 or 5. And Jets X Factor posted something great, and they were talking about Reynolds, his ability to block, and that's something I think Aaron Glenn brought up as well. I'm not for this projected plan, and it's not like Muji or Glenn came out with this specifically. The Lions kind of use their wide receiver 2 as a rotation thing. The Jets don't have that advantage, in my opinion. So, Vinny, I'll let you sound off on Josh Reynolds and the wide receiver room, because after this, we also have another wide receiver to cover.
Yeah, again, like you said, buy low, high risk, low risk, high reward. If he plays the full season, then you get a good wide receiver 3, 4 out of him. I would have spent a little more money to get Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, I've watched Lockett play since I was living in Seattle. I love Tyler Lockett, but if we couldn't get him, I guess this was the next best. I'm guessing because again, Josh Reynolds is a good receiver. He's a good. I mean, he's going to catch the ball for you. He's going to do more than what Randall Cobb did when he joined the Jets.
Oh my
I think he's
God.
going to have a bigger. I think he's going to have a bigger
Oh,
role
I think so too.
than him. And plus, familiarity. He's familiar to Glenn. And again, and he can run block, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. Throw a screen out. He's going to be able to block, which is good. It's hard to find those guys out there. But he's going to be kind of a Swiss knife type guy. I don't know. Does he play the slot at all, or is he just a slot? Is he an outside guy?
I I
You know,
wasn't too sure on his formation stuff. Obviously,
yeah.
you
So
mentioned the blocking aspect that he's great at.
right.
Quality run blocker. I believe he's ranked as the sixth best receiver in terms of that category. But
Mhm.
some other things as well. He's 6'3". We obviously mentioned the big body target.
Right.
He actually had multiple injuries last year. He had a fractured finger, and he also was unfortunately the victim of a shooting. Minor shooting injuries, though. That only led him to play 9 games. He was cut from Denver and believe he went to Jacksonville right after, picked up in December. But as we mentioned, familiarity with the Lions, he had his best season as a pro with them. 40 receptions, 608 yards, 5 touchdowns, and maybe that's what, like, as we said, Reynolds is more of like your wide receiver 4 type. Can we get that same production from him at 30 with that same kind of rotation with what the Jets might do at wide
Yeah.
receiver 2?
I mean, I don't think I don't know if we're going to get 600 yards out of
No.
him. But also, you got to remember the factor of as far as locker room. Maybe
Mhm.
from what I've heard, he's a good locker room guy. So maybe another guy that Garrett Wilson can kind of bounce stuff off of in the
Absolutely.
wide receiver room. You do need those like veteran wide receivers in
Absolutely.
that room. Kind of keeps the younger guys a little grounded because they've been
I
there,
agree.
done that, and seen it. So, I mean, I'm nothing wrong with the signing. Like I said, it's like you said, it's low risk, high reward, 1 year deal, 5 million doesn't really hurt us. So, I'm definitely for it.
Yeah, I'm for it too. As long as you said, the great locker room presence you hope to have with the building of a new culture and the foundation, all these different things. It almost brings me back to when the Jets signed Keelan Cole in 2021 to be that kind of
Oh,
like wide receiver
right,
for veteran
right,
presence.
right.
I'm just hoping the same for Reynolds. Again, I have nothing against Reynolds. I knew the Jets would at least target him or sign him,
Mhm.
but as long as like he's not overused to the point where
But
nobody else is getting an
he
opportunity.
was also with the Lions on the way, like, down and on the way up. So
That's right.
maybe he knows more about, taking a team from, like, the bottom and kinda building it up a little more and how to talk to guys and stuff. That there's other reasons why, guys are signed too that maybe we aren't privy to. So, maybe that was the thinking too with this signing. So, and I think that was what it was. I don't think they're going to get 600 yards out of him. I don't think. And if
No.
they do, again, if I'm wrong about that, great. I would love to be wrong about
Oh
that.
yeah.
But I just see a guy that's going to just fill in here and there, and just, be a presence.
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So we'll stay in the wide receiver room. The Jets also signed a wide receiver by the name of Tyler Johnson, former Tampa Bay Buccaneer. He also played with the LA Rams this past season. He's 26. He'll be 27 by the start of 25. As you see, there's a little bit of a theme here. Players in their mid to late 20s signing with the Jets. I think that's the common theme of what the Jets are trying to establish. A lot of young but experienced players signed to about a 1 year, $1.3 million deal. Ideally, he's probably a wide receiver 4 or 5, and maybe he's just a camp body. But here's some other things as well. He's 6'1". He has only 5 drops, 5 in his 5-year career. But last year with the Rams, 26 receptions, 291 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Just some other readings that I did upon JetX Factor. Uh, Average speed, not great. I think the size is more of what you're looking for. Reliable hands, especially in tight window situations. He's also elusive as a pass catcher that can create easy yards after the catch. 117 yards after the catch over expected, which ranked top 10 in the NFL, with some of the best nonetheless. I think Jamar Chase, if I'm not mistaken, was on that list, regardless.
Yeah,
Not
probably.
much special teams experience, so we don't know what we're getting there. But he is versatile in which the ways he can line up. So, Vinny, if you have any thoughts, go at it. I know you don't
I
probably
mean,
not know whole lot about Johnson, but
other
just
than
what
being
you're.
yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt you, man.
It's all right.
But other than being a depth, I think this is more a depth and competition piece.
Mhm.
I think it just adds, like, a little bit of comp and a little bit of depth to the room. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, let's say Malachi Corley, like, jumps up, that this guy gets, like, pushed down even further, probably.
That's fair.
Um, because if Corley becomes the guy, like Mr. Yak King that he was supposed to be, um, but I think this guy, again, just a depth signing to me. Nothing really, I mean, great hands. If the ball's thrown to him, he's going to catch it. So, other than that, I don't think it's going to be if we don't see him, I wouldn't be surprised. But
Yeah.
if we have to see him a lot, it probably means one of our receivers is hurt.
Yeah.
One of our big time, one of our, like either Garrett or, one of the other,
Corley.
Corley's hurt. But I don't really think we see him a lot if our receiver room is healthy and going the way I would hope it goes.
Absolutely. And aside from the quarterback position, Aaron Glenn emphasized the word competition, so he could very well be in that. I don't, and I think this is obvious to a lot of people. I don't think this should prevent from the Jets from drafting not even just one, multiple
Oh no, of
receivers.
course not. Of
I
course not.
think the receiver class has a lot of receivers, not very top heavy, but they're just kind of littered throughout the draft. As we'll obviously break that down in our draft show. But nothing to say more about Tyler Johnson, but another player on the low risk, high reward category that I put down, probably the last one, Stone Smart from the Los Angeles Chargers, 26 years old, 1 year, $1.35 million. Maybe a tight end 2, tight end 3. Last year in about 15 games, 208 yards, no touchdowns, 16 receptions. But what we did learn, or at least fans did learn, first of all, Chargers fans were not happy with letting this guy go. They saw it as like not a major loss, but they really wish they could have him back. He's very reliable. Caught 82% of his targets. When he is targeted, his quarterbacks have a 112.3 passer rating, which is way above average. Good catch radius, makes for reliable deep threat and intermediate threat. He's also good at finding the soft spots in the defense. And I'm sure you don't know much about Stone Smart either, Vinny, but feel free to speak on the tight end position overall and what kind of conundrum we have.
I mean, we definitely need a tight end, obviously, and Ruckert. Ruckert was supposed to be, the tight end too to
Yeah.
Conklin, and I don't think he's even that. I mean, I think he's down on the depth chart too, but I think this is again another depth signing. But I don't know how many tight ends are you going to keep. So that's going to be like a roster thing, I'm guessing, because if we, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. If we pick the tight end, I think we should pick in the beginning of the draft. I think that moves everybody down one spot. But again, this is a depth signing. If he's reliable, then maybe he takes Ruckert's job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he does become a tight end too. But I also don't know how many two tight end sets are we going to go into? How many, what formations are we going to use? I mean, that's going to tell a lot as to what our tight end position is going to look like. And if you remember, Justin Fields used tight ends a lot when he was Cole Kmet. He used Freiermuth in Pittsburgh. So
a little bit of Darnell Washington, I believe, as well.
Yeah. I mean, he used his tight ends a lot because, I don't know if whether it was like throwing downfield was an issue, or
safety blanket.
He just wasn't, or he was. Yeah, I mean, safety blanket. He wasn't confident to throw the ball downfield, which I had heard some of too. But I think in Justin Fields' first year, you're going to need a good tight end.
Absolutely.
But I don't know if Stone Smart's going to be the guy. And again, that's why I kind of want to go with the tight end in the first round. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is again a depth signing. It's a low risk, high reward signing.
Yeah.
If it works out, again, great. If not, then you didn't really you lost 1.35 million. So
yeah, that's not much. And the main emphasis, once again, competition. Also, an emphasis I put in the earlier part of the show was coaching. How well can they coach some of these young guys up to get them to their full potential? Not exactly expecting everybody to be superstars, but it's pretty obvious the Jets need tight end bodies. And a little foreshadowing, I agree with your sentiment about a specific tight end in the first round.
I think I may have already said his name.
That's for our draft. that's for our draft show. We'll obviously get that.
Exactly.
But Vinny, I'll let you lead the segment a little bit. This is a little bit of the depth guys. Is there any specific depth guy you really want to get into that you're intrigued by? We put down the stats together. Obviously, we signed some defensive tackles. We signed Josh Myers. We signed Chu Okorafor.
That's probably the one guy that I'd like to get into more is Josh Myers. I think can be a pretty good center for us, and he's going to be. I mean, obviously, but he can move around. I think. I think you may need him in, not move him around, but if if let's say you have to move, Tippmann or.
Right.
Tippmann gets hurt. He's a good not a rotational piece, but a depth piece in case something happens.
Yeah.
Because you can move AVT inside or outside, I think.
Absolutely.
But this gives us a lot of options, though. I think that's why the Myers signing, I think, is going to be pretty good. And he's played games. I mean, he seems like a reliable guy. I mean, yeah, he wasn't the best run blocker, 54 of 64 centers, but I mean, if Justin Fields is getting out and running, I mean, you need him to block for a little bit, but if he's getting outside and running away, I mean, you're not really going to need him. The pass blocking is going to be the more important part of that, I think, especially when you have a mobile quarterback. But again, we'll see. But I like this signing. I think the signing was probably one of the better ones as far as a under the radar type signing. And then he knows Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson, so That kind
Exactly.
of,
I was about to bring
reunites
that up.
him with the Ohio State group. So, you know, I like that. I like that. And then as far as the signing that I kind of scratched my head again was the Okorafor signing. If you recall, he left his team
After one
with the
game.
Patriots after one game. I don't know if I want a guy like that. And
Yeah.
I'm not, it's tough though, man. It's really tough for me to sign a guy like this, but maybe he has a lot to prove. I don't know. But again, another depth signing. If he plays, I mean, it's not like he hasn't started. He started 60 times with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he
So,
wasn't that good, to be honest, either.
and he
Not a
wasn't
lot of
really that good. So
Mhm.
I don't know. That kind of scratched my head on that. Although it's only a 1 year, $1.33 million deal, so it's not like too much money. So
Yeah, he's probably just a camp body, but at the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time, is that you hope he just does, it's not like a guy who's like monumentally popular. You don't want those kind of vibes where, you know, he only played 12 snaps in that New England game against Cincinnati, and they
Hmm.
were god awful from what I saw. But at the
Right.
same time, quitting on your team is not the example you
Yeah, I
want.
mean, and we never really found out why he left, did we?
Apparently, he was frustrated with his playing time and was
Okay, well,
contemplating his future in football. And he struggled throughout training camp and preseason, apparently.
and here's the thing: is what I mean. He's coming to. He went to a bad team.
Yeah.
He's coming to another. I mean, not great team. Not as horrible as the Patriots were last year. But you know, what does he look? I mean, I know he's trying to resurrect his career, but I don't know if the Jets or the team. I mean, maybe you pick one of the bad teams and then you try to play well. But I mean, how much playing time? Maybe he thinks he's going to get playing time. Maybe he thinks he's better than a lot of the guys that we have, but he's
Yeah.
not going to play. He's not going to play right tackle for us more than like. Although right tackle is probably one of the positions where we may need somebody
Mhm.
because Olu plays left, right? So
That's correct.
he may think, well, I got a shot to start with the Jets at right tackle. Well, he better show out because if we pick a right tackle in the draft,
Yeah.
again, there goes that competition again. So, um,
And we
I'm
still have
just
Carter Warren and Max Mitchell.
yeah, and you still again, and Max Mitchell's good. I think he's good. Although he hadn't played that, he was hurt. I think the year before last.
Hmm.
And then he didn't really play great last year, but I like Max Mitchell. But I don't know. I just don't. I mean, is he gonna leave again if he doesn't get
No,
enough
I hope
playing
not.
time? I mean, that's what I'm worried about with that one. And I may have stayed away from this guy, but again, a 1 year, $1.33 million deal. I don't think is going to hurt us at all.
No, I don't think so,
So
especially if it's a depth camp body signing. Obviously, you can
right,
draft players in the draft to take for depth and all these
exactly,
different things. But
exactly.
Vinny, if you don't have any other remarks regarding the free agent class or any signings you want to get to, we can start with our final thoughts on episode 1.
Yeah, I mean this has been it's been good to go through these with you, and I think this is kind of a wait and see type free agent class.
Absolutely.
We're gonna again we're gonna go. I think we're gonna go through some pains with this class, and don't be surprised if some of these don't hit. But the fact that we only signed them to 1 year deals, it's the guys that we signed like Brandon Stevens to a 3 year deal, um, and then that guy, I think the only one we really need to be concerned about is Brandon Stevens, and of course the quarterback.
Absolutely.
But again, we only signed him to a 2 year deal. If we want to, we can get out of that deal after a year,
Exactly.
and then you have to, because if it's really bad, you're going to have a good pick, and
Right.
you have some
You have
quarterbacks.
flexibility.
You have some quarterbacks, at least in next year's draft, that you can work with if you're one of the higher picks in the draft. So, I mean, I'm not hoping for a high pick, and I'm not into
No.
tanking. I always hate tanking. I always hate, fans that talk about tanking. Matter of fact, when I watch Let's Talk Jets and they start talking about tanking, I shut it right off. So I'm like, I'm definitely not into the tank part of it, and I understand why teams do it, but I would rather be competitive and be. I mean, I hate to be foreign, whatever, but at
Yeah, of
least if you're
course.
competitive in every game, I don't mind it. Especially if it's not like the fault, if you're not shooting yourself in the foot every time,
Exactly.
like we did last year. That was a bad 7-10. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So, or whatever, we were 6-11, but I can't,
Yeah.
I can't take any more. It's hard to take the losing seasons, but I think again, this draft class is going to be a wait and see. And, we'll see down the road, man. We got hopefully plenty of these podcasts or videos to do. So we'll go through it, and we'll go through either the pain together, or we'll go through the joys of hopefully, dare I say it, getting into the playoffs for the first time in 11 years. So
Yeah. 14 actually, but
okay, 14.
it would honestly be quite the surprise. And I said earlier in the show, a lot of these teams, Jaguars, Texans, Lions, they can make their turnarounds quick, like in the snap of a finger. I can't snap, obviously, but the point is, why can't it be the Jets? I'm not saying they should win 10 games this year. That's not the expectation.
Right.
Show me and this is the prove it mindset that we both share.
Mm-hmm.
Prove that there's a blueprint.
Right.
Win about like 7 games. I think most people was what we're expecting to win,
Mm-hmm.
and show there's like competent coaching. Show you're in games.
Be in every
Obviously,
game. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously, there's going to be some coaching growing pains with Aaron Glenn and some of the staff, but
Mm-hmm.
there's like a new path moving forward. So next year we can be competitive, and that's I think what we ask. And this is going to be a tough year for us because there's a lot of young players. Obviously, I think the one bad thing that about this year could be, do Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner want to stay here? Now they've tweeted an active support saying, "Hey, listen, I want to stay here."
Right.
Can they take one more year of losing? Though is the question. Will they buy in? Will the players buy into Aaron Glenn and his vision? Because there's a stink around this organization, and it would be unfair to put it on Darren Mucci and Aaron Glenn.
No, not in the first year. Not in the
No.
first year. I mean, you got to give them time. You got to give them time to implement what they want to implement. And you can see it, and you'll be able to see some of it in training camp, not all of it, because again, we got fooled in training camp, for the last, I think, 3 years. The all gas, no break, the
tough practices,
the tough practices, we got maybe it was only me. I got bamboozled into thinking that was going to be a good team, and it turned out not to be. So I'm not even going to go by what I see of training camp. You're going to have to show me during the regular season that you can be in games. And
it's
results. The results are going to be what counts. That's it. And I think that's what every Jet fan should take into the season.
Absolutely. It's results. It's, the process could be the process. Obviously, as you said, Muji and his co are going to try to implement different things, but we want to see results. We want to see tangible results. We want to see improvement, progress, and all these different things. But it's going to be a long year. But if you guys haven't already, if you're new here, this has been episode 1 of the Gangrene Chronicles podcast, discussing Jets free agency, whether we liked it or not. We obviously gave our thoughts, but if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you know when we go live or we drop a new video.
Are we going to give a grade on this free agency?
We should.
Okay.
Vinny, I'll let you open with the grade.
I'm going to give it I'm going to go with passing. I'm going to go with a C.
That's fair.
And the only reason I'm going with a C is because we got a quarterback, and we got Cisco, which I wanted. But there's a lot of wait and see on this in this free agency. So I can't go as high as a B, and definitely not an A.
No. Not an F either. It's not.
No, but it's not even an F or a D, I don't think. I mean, you could go D, I guess, but I mean, we'll see what you say. But I think a C is probably a good, middle of the road. You passed a little bit, but then again, it could turn to an F real quick during the season.
Again, that's what the results bear.
Yeah,
that's what results are for. We're only in March. We haven't hit the field or anything like that. So it's probably around where you are. Like, I don't want to copy, but it's like a C+ kind of thing. It's not like they didn't spend money. I think the most questionable contract would be the Stevens contract. We have a lot to see there. But I think they added depth in necessary places. And once again, I'm going to use the word competition.
Right.
Wide receiver, defensive tackle. Even though we didn't really break down the defensive tackle signings, but we broke down the most important. That was what was key
Mhm.
here on
Yeah.
episode 1. But
Yeah.
as I said, from Vinny Masacol to my left and my right, however you want to see it, Luca Gajovich-Protich here. Follow us on Gangrene Crons on X. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that like button. Also, turn on the notification bell so you know when we go live or drop a new video. Plenty more content. This is just the start, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this. Hope you enjoyed the start of the ride because it's going to be a lot of fun. Talk to you guys later. Let's go, Jets.